This is Susak, a small and sandy Croatian island located in the middle of the Adriatic Ocean. There has been a settlement in this area since early Roman times named Gornje Selo, the upper village. This is where citizens of ancient Rome went to their summer retreats to bask in the glorious sunshine and enjoy the friendly climate. Around 1000 years later, during the 19th century, the lower village was built and named Donje Selo. Traditionally, the farmers of Susak have always planted reeds to protect their fields and crops from the gale-force winds named Bora and Jugo. This is because the deep-reaching roots of the reeds protect the ground from erosion. But why don't we start at the beginning? On the 6th of March 2020, I set off for a trip to Vienna to visit an old friend of mine. 2 days later, I continued my journey to the harbor town Rijeka. On the 9th of March, I took a ferry, a catamaran to Susak, which took about 3.5 hours. Welcome to Susak. My friends Anna and Uli had been expecting me, and we celebrated my arrival in Anna's house in the upper village together with Anica and Srećko. Accommodation was provided by the small hotel Konova Barbara. Mrs. Barbara Busic-Ribaric is the owner of this hotel. She's not only deputy major, but also a teacher in the only primary school in Susak. The next day we embarked on our first excursion from the upper village to the sandy beach of Bok. Back in the 1930s, this beach used to be a climate health resort, where clients enjoyed relaxed sunbathing and the breezy fresh air. They even offered so-called grape therapy, which at the time was a fashionable type of alternative healing method inspired by contemporary naturopathy. We can still find remainders of these facilities nowadays. However, the majority of the original buildings were recycled a long time ago to construct new buildings. On the way back towards the upper village, past numerous vineyards, you can visit the Marine Cemetery. It was built in 1818, and many of the people buried here had previously emigrated to America. A great number of them returned to Susak, which would become their final resting place. Later we visited Gordana and Vlado, who had invited us for a meal. Calamari freshly caught from the sea with fried potatoes and salad. Yummy! The day before my departure, we took a trip to the Bay of Nasusanski. Nasusanski means tear in Croatian. When the eye wanders across the sparkly deep blue open sea, it's easy to understand why it was called that. On the way back through the vineyards, we bumped into a long-standing citizen of Susak, a pheasant. It was the ancient Romans who introduced these birds to the island. One last dinner and it was farewell to my friends, after a wonderful and very relaxing week on the island. On the 16th of March, I was packed and ready at the harbor to begin my return journey. The catamaran would take me to Rijeka, and from there I would take the train back to Munich. At least that was the plan. Before I even arrived at the ticket counter of Rijeka main station, in my mind I was already enjoying the view from the train between Austria and Bavaria. But from that point, all train operations had been completely cancelled. I thought maybe I could take the bus to the Zagreb airport. But when my online booking was almost complete, the airline's website crashed. The plane left without me. Forget Zagreb. Let's head back to Susak. I just about managed to catch the last ferry to Susak. And see there, ferry operations were completely stopped the next morning. Lockdown in Susak. Fortunately, Anna and Uli were more than happy to welcome me back, and I stayed at my good old Konoba Barbara hotel in the upper village till the end of March. Then my friends introduced me to a couple of wonderful people in the lower village, who generously allowed me to stay to their apartment for the rest of the time. Rosita and he. So, now at least I had a super cheap roof over my head. But what do you do with yourself when you're stranded indefinitely on a fairly remote island? The answer came to me promptly via this four-legged colleague called Moody, Rosita and he's Croatian shepherd dog. We became best friends very quickly and the adventure of island exploration could begin. The first excursion with my new pal took us from Susak via Baldarka and Punta to the Bay of Porat. En route, we encountered a few sponge collectors and harpoon divers. Once arrived in Porat, we took a steep path upwards past a beautiful forest. Made it! Our first coast hike was completed. Anna welcomed us back with a yummy dinner, pancakes. The next day we took Vlado's fishing boat to the neighboring islands of Male and Veles Rakane. Also part of the crew, Vlado's wife Gordana, as well as Maria and Anna. To my surprise, on this island, which is about 1.5 kilometers long and 450 meters wide, lives an elderly couple.
Hoćete jednu naranču, imam finu naranču. Bravo.
On our way to the coast, we enjoyed the landscape, and once we had arrived, we admired the silhouette of Susak. Anna explained that when the local donkeys become a bit moody, it's always good to have a stick in your hand to fend them off. Personally, I enjoyed watching them from a safe distance. There are many old olive trees, and especially wild asparagus is growing everywhere. Gordana's, Maria's and Anna's enthusiasm in asparagus inspired me to pick them also here and then. Back on the boat, we're making our return journey to Veles Rakane. There's a family-owned organic farm on this island, and we're setting out to buy freshly laid organic eggs, if they allow us. I dreamt of my breakfast the next day. Espresso and egg. At dusk, we went back to the boat. Vlado started playing some music and put on a bit of a show too. The next day, my friend he and I did some work in Rosita's garden, which is located right behind the primary school of Susak. It's a small garden which includes a pit toilet. There's lots of gardening work to do, and as I was told later, our efforts were a full success. And of course, my new buddy Moody expected me impatiently. We wanted to visit the lighthouse and also the former barracks. My first encounter with the harmless but fascinating black snakes of Susak. Don't worry, the snake disappeared into the reed unharmed. After climbing up 98 meters, we reached the top of Mount Garba and enjoyed the amazing view. And there it was, the biggest and most important lighthouse in the whole area. It is built on an ancient fortified site which became a watchtower after World War II. Nowadays it's inhabited by lighthouse keeper Davor, his wife Tiana and their two children Paula and Josip. One night they got a surprise from the otherwise elusive wild boar. In the ruins of former barracks, close to the lighthouse, I noticed iron ladder bars and couldn't resist climbing up. A wonderful view was my reward. So, and then I had to climb down 6 meters. Careful, step by step. As per usual, after our excursions, my little partner took a quick foot bath and tried chasing after the laughing seagulls, unsuccessfully.
Na poštama sunce čekaju. Noće mirno, hvala zgrade dižu. Vižitalju i vršu i mrižu. Čekaju, da im njima žagaju, u ribare oni viruju.
New day, new adventure. We met up with Anna and Uli at Bok and followed the coastal path towards Arad, Tijesny and Sika all the way to Nazuzanski. someone is expecting us at Nasusanski Bay. On the way back we saw a hoopoe, which must have felt like this is his paradise with all the wild honeybees around. The gecko is enjoying the sunshine, and we followed the so-called motorway, which is what residents call the only streets on the otherwise car-free island. If you take a ride at the bottom, you will notice the Bauhaus of Susak, a particular type of recycling site. It is quite incredible what things can still be recycled or used for repairs or art projects. Whatever can't be reused is picked by the boat and taken to the mainland. And yet another eventful day is coming to an end. There's a former fish factory which was transformed into a supermarket in 1982. Doria and Damir manage the store and are super friendly sales assistants too. Again, I bumped into my friend Gordana in the town square. She looks after the stray cats of Susak. This is busy Nadia. She works for the community, looks after the parks and makes sure that the streets are kept clean. Sandro works at the fire brigade house and he's the only official firefighter of Susak, but also a tractor mechanic and the son of Gordana and Vlado. Behind the fire brigade building we have the legendary clubhouse. Built in 1952, it's the meeting place of the locals, but at the moment it's closed due to the current corona lockdown. I thought I'd better hurry, because the church bells are already calling for the Mass, which I'm keen to attend together with Anna and Uli. These stairs, of altogether 150 steps, were built in 1906 to make it quicker to get to the upper village from the lower village, but it was even quicker to get out of breath. The medieval chapel of St. Nicholas is graced with a Baroque altar from the 17th century. And this is Veli Boch. It means great God. Legend tells that the Roman cross was found on the beach of Potternack Bay on the 3rd May in the 12th century and taken to the chapel. This date has been celebrated as a festive bank holiday for centuries. Therefore, it's also celebrated on the 3rd May 2020. After the church visit, we went in his motorboat for a trip around the entire island. My friend Moody didn't appreciate at all that I went without him. We took him on board the next day. The next day I explored the rest of the island, but this time without my little friend Moody, starting out at Porat via Salibok, Potomac and Draga all the way to Nazuzanski. Sir Shrimp wasn't really in the mood for a photo session today. The path ended at Bay Salibok, and I had to wade through the water reaching up to my chest. When I arrived at Bay Nazuzanski, my friend Uli was already waiting for me. The next morning, the supply boat delivered some goods as usual, but it also brought the sensational news that the borders will be opened up again soon. Feeling in high spirits, we decided to collect the washed-up rubbish from the beach for recycling. It came to quite a few bits and pieces. Well, and then on the 12th of May there was another little detail. My birthday. Rosita and he had secretly decorated the house and surprised us later with yummy chocolate cake. The next day was a day of work. We started off by clearing an overgrown footpath with machetes, leading from the upper village to the motorway. After that, we continued decorating our Indian-American village, a ruin opposite Anna's house, which we had transformed with much sweat and love. To finish the day off, we had a carriola photo session. After Uli had painted Anna's wheelbarrow, of course many neighbors also wanted to be the owners of such beautiful carriola artifact. On Susak, the wheelbarrow is the #1 tool of transportation. In the meantime, Anna had prepared my favorite meal, calamari with potatoes. This is our last dinner together, and then it was time for me to say goodbye. I finally left Susak and many old and new friends on the 18th of May 2020. This time I didn't take the catamaran, but instead I traveled by boat to Maliljushin. From there I took the bus to Rijeka, then the car ferry from Cres to Kirk, and finally another bus to Zagreb Airport. I was surprised how empty the airport was. also in Frankfurt train station. There were hardly any people. But the train did arrive, and so this was the end of my 71-day journey to Susak.